I fixed my neighbor's furnace at midnight, and the house was so quiet I could hear the old thermostat clicking like a tired heart. Amelia stood in the kitchen with her hands wrapped around a mug she had not drunk from. Ethan's tablet glowed on the table, still connected to something, still listening to something. I remember her saying, almost too softly to count as words, "No one ever comes when I call." I did not know yet that the sentence was about me. 6 hours earlier, I was sitting across from a woman named Claire in a downtown restaurant where the napkins were folded into sharp white triangles and the waiter described butter like it had a resume. Claire was kind, pretty, and patient in the way grown women become when they realize a man is not cruel, just somewhere else. She asked what I did when I wasn't fixing boilers, patching drywall, or crawling under old houses with a flashlight in my teeth. I told her about the duplex on Marigold Street. Then I told her about Mrs. Patterson's leaking sink. Then, without meaning to, I told her about Amelia Brooks, the teacher next door who graded spelling tests at her kitchen table, kept emergency granola bars in her purse, and once made 27 paper snowflakes because her fourth graders said the classroom felt sad in January. Claire smiled over her wine. "You talk about her like she's family." I laughed because that was safer than answering. Amelia and I were just neighbors. That was the label we used, the clean little hook we hung everything on. She left chicken soup on my porch when I worked snow calls. I checked her furnace every November before the first freeze. Her son, Ethan, showed me his science projects before he showed his mother, not because he loved her less, but because I always had electrical tape and understood why volcanoes mattered. Amelia kept my spare key in a blue ceramic bowl by her door. I knew which stair in her house creaked and which cabinet stuck when the weather turned damp. Just neighbors. Claire set down her fork. "Jacob, are you looking for someone? Or avoiding the person you already found?" I drove home with that question in the passenger seat. I had no answer for it. Then my phone buzzed at 11:37. "Amelia." "Sorry," she said the second I picked up, because she apologized before asking for help. "The furnace is making that metal sound again. The landlord isn't answering." I was already reaching for my boots. "Keep Ethan in the kitchen. I'm coming." 15 minutes later, I was kneeling in her basement, shoulder pressed against cold concrete, my flashlight beam shaking across rusted screws. Upstairs, I could hear Amelia opening drawers, setting out towels, moving through her house like a woman determined not to need too much. On the bottom step sat a bowl of soup covered with foil. My name was written on the sticky note. Same as always. Warm this first. And for the first time, I wondered if the thing I kept trying to find in restaurants and careful conversations had been waiting next door all along. The furnace coughed once, deep in its metal belly, then went quiet in a way I did not trust. I tightened the last panel screw and wiped my thumb across the seam, feeling for vibration. Upstairs, the kitchen floorboards creaked. Amelia was moving around slowly, the way people move when they are trying not to wake a child. I packed my wrench, my voltage tester, the roll of electrical tape Ethan always called my magic tape, and stood there for a second longer than I needed to. The basement smelled like dust, warm metal, and the faint sweetness of the soup waiting on the stairs. I should have gone up, told her the igniter was failing but safe for tonight, and left. Instead, I heard Ethan's voice from the kitchen, small and serious. "Aunt Ray, Mom says she's fine, but she's doing the face." I froze with one hand on the railing. Amelia made a sharp sound. "Ethan Brooks, I thought you ended that call." "I did," he said. "I think." "Wait. No. The group project tab is still open." There was a scramble of fingers on glass. A chair leg scraped. Then a woman's voice came through the tablet speaker, tinny but warm. "Amelia, honey, why are you calling the landlord first when Jacob always comes?" I knew then I was hearing something I had no right to hear. My hand tightened around the stair rail until the old wood pressed a line into my palm. I should have made noise. I should have walked up right then, said, "I'm still here," and given her privacy back before it became something she could not take back. But the house had gone so still, and my name in that kitchen sounded different than it did anywhere else. Amelia exhaled, tired all the way through. "Because he's not my husband, Ray. Nobody said he was." Everybody thinks it. Do you? The silence after that question was soft and terrible. I felt it move through the floor joists. Above me, a mug touched down on the counter. Ethan whispered, "Aunt Ray, don't." He was not stirring trouble. He sounded like a boy standing in front of a door so his mother would not be pushed through it. Amelia spoke anyway. Not loud, not dramatic, just worn open by cold in years and too many unanswered calls. "No one ever comes when I call," she said. "Except Jacob." My chest went tight. Not warm, not romantic. Tight like someone had turned a bolt under my ribs. She kept going, barely above breath. "And that scares me, because I stopped feeling alone because of him." The furnace clicked behind me. I flinched so hard my shoulder hit the hanging pipe. The sound traveled up the stairs like a confession of its own. In the kitchen, a tablet chimed. The screen must have brightened, because blue light spilled across the stairwell wall. Ethan said my name first. Not Mom. Not Aunt Ray. Jacob. Amelia did not move. I could picture her hand around that cold mug, her face turning toward the basement door, already understanding. My boot was on the first step when I finally answered, my voice rough and too late. "I'm still here." The tablet stayed open on the kitchen table, its blue light flattening everything it touched. Amelia stood behind a chair with one hand on the backrest, her knuckles pale against the wood. Ethan had moved beside her, not in front of her exactly, but close enough to make a wall if he needed to. Aunt Ray's face filled a small square in the corner of the screen, frozen in that careful expression adults use when they know a child is listening. I stopped at the top of the basement stairs and did not step closer. "I'm sorry," I said. My voice sounded wrong in her kitchen, rough from dust and from shame. I should have said something the second I realized this was private. Amelia looked at me, then at the tablet, then down at the mug she still had not touched. "How much did you hear?" I could have softened it. I could have pretended. But that would have been another way of taking something from her. "Enough." Her eyes closed. Ethan's hand landed on the edge of the table, right beside the glowing mute button he had not pressed. Aunt Ray spoke first. "Jacob, don't you dare make a promise because you feel bad." I nodded once. "I won't." Amelia laughed without smiling. "That's comforting." "I mean it," I said. "I don't want to use what I heard to corner you." The cursor blinked in an empty message box on Ethan's school tab. Blink, blink, blink. Like the whole room was waiting for me to type the right answer and prove I was not the fool I suddenly felt like. My coat was hanging over the chair where Amelia always put it when I came in from the snow. There was a chipped black mug in her cabinet with my name written on masking tape from the week she borrowed cups for a school fundraiser. She knew I took coffee black unless I'd been on a roof all day. Then she added sugar without asking. When my last girlfriend ended things in a parking lot outside a hardware store, Amelia had appeared on her porch 10 minutes after I got home with leftover lasagna and no questions. I had called her first when my truck died, when my father's anniversary hit harder than usual, when work got slow and I was scared I'd lose the apartment. And every date I went on, I measured against the quiet of this kitchen, the sound of Ethan turning pages, the way Amelia said my name like it already belonged somewhere safe. "You're doing it," Amelia whispered. "Doing what?" "Looking backward and trying to make it make sense because you're shocked." She lifted her chin. There was fear in her face, but not weakness. "Jacob, is this guilt? Is it panic because you might lose your comfortable place next door? Or is it something you actually knew before tonight?" I had no clean answer, only 1,000 small ones. "I need to answer that in person," I said. "Not while your son is holding a tablet like a shield." Ethan swallowed and looked away. Amelia reached down and touched his shoulder. Then she pressed the red button. "Some things," she said, just before the screen went dark, "shouldn't be solved through a microphone you forgot was on." I did not knock on Amelia's door right away. That mattered later. I went home first, even though home was only 12 steps across the frozen strip of grass between our houses. I took off my boots, washed the furnace dust from my hands until the water ran clear, changed out of the coat she had seen 100 times, and stood in my kitchen with my keys in my palm. The spare key to her house sat on the ring, bright brass and too familiar. I removed it. Then I walked back through the snow holding it between two fingers, not like a right, but like something borrowed. Her porch light was on. Inside, I could see the shape of her moving past the curtain. I knocked once and stepped back from the door. No leaning into the frame. No calling through the glass. No acting like I belonged there until she decided whether I still did. The lock turned after a long minute. Amelia opened the door wearing the same gray sweater, her hair tied badly at the back of her neck, one hand still on the knob. Ethan was visible behind her in the hallway, pretending to read while watching everything. "I'm not coming in unless you ask me to," I said. "Good," she answered. Her voice was tired, but steady. She looked at the key in my hand. I held it out. "This should be yours until you decide what I am." Something moved across her face, hurt first, then respect. She stepped onto the porch and pulled the door almost closed behind her. Cold air slipped between us. "If that hadn't happened," she said, "if the microphone had been off, if you had never heard me, would you ever have told me?" There it was. No softellis. No place to hide. I looked down at the snow caught in the cracks of the porch boards. "Maybe not soon enough." Her mouth tightened. "That's not an answer. It is the honest one." I lifted my eyes. I think I would have kept calling it neighborly. I would have fixed your furnace, eaten your soup, watched Ethan grow up from across the yard, and told myself wanting to come here first was just habit. She swallowed, but did not look away. "So tonight made you feel guilty. Tonight made me ashamed," I said. "Not of loving you, of how long I let you carry the silence alone." I did not give her a speech. I gave her the small proofs because that was all I had earned. "I knew you had parent conferences every second Thursday. I kept jumper cables in my truck after your battery died in the rain. I stopped buying canned soup because yours made every other kind taste like metal. Claire asked me what I wanted, and I described your kitchen before I knew I was doing it." Amelia's eyes shone, but her voice stayed firm. "I will not be the woman you choose because another date felt empty. You're not. And you don't get to call this a mistake tomorrow. I won't. And Ethan doesn't become proof that you're a good man." That one hit deep. "He deserves better than that. So do you." She opened her hand slowly. "Then say it without the screen." I placed the key in her palm first. Then, only when her fingers stayed open, I let my hand rest beneath hers. "I choose you, Amelia, not because I heard you, because I finally stopped lying about where I already was." She breathed once, shaky but clear, and folded her fingers around mine. "Then Friday," she said. "A real date. You knock at 7. Friday at 7. I knocked on Amelia's door with flowers in one hand and no toolbox in the other. That was harder than it should have been. For 5 years, I had arrived with a reason. A leaking pipe, a dead outlet, a furnace that sounded like loose change in a dryer. That night, the only repair I brought was the one I owed our habits. Amelia opened the door in a navy dress I had never seen, simple and soft, with her teacher ID still clipped to her purse like she had come straight from the life she built before I ever learned how much I wanted to be part of it. "No fixing anything tonight," she said. I lifted both hands. "I left the wrench at home." Ethan appeared behind her wearing pajama pants and a suspicious grin. "Don't be weird," he told me. "That was my plan," I said. "You'll need a better one." Amelia laughed, and the sound loosened something in my chest. We moved slowly after that, not because we were unsure, but because Amelia made the pace clear. I'm not blending our lives just because we finally admitted they touched. She told me over burgers at a place where she knew 3 former students and corrected one boy's grammar without thinking. She still graded essays on Saturday mornings. She still met other teachers for coffee. She still kept a folder on her desk labeled assistant principal interview materials, and when I asked about it, she did not soften her ambition to make me comfortable. "I want that job," she said. "I've wanted it for years." "Then I want to know what Tuesdays look like when you're chasing it," I told her. So Tuesdays became ours. Not emergency Tuesdays, not furnace Tuesdays, Just dinner at her kitchen table with Ethan doing homework and Amelia reading district policy while I chopped onions badly. Little things began crossing the yard. My brown jacket stayed on the back of her chair after a rainstorm. Her red travel mug appeared in my truck cup holder. A toothbrush showed up in her bathroom cabinet, still in the package for 3 days before she opened the drawer and said, "This is not a lease." "Understood," I said. "It's a toothbrush." She cleared one small drawer by the door for my work gloves, and I cleared space on my fridge for Ethan's school calendar. The spare key came back to my ring, but this time she handed it to me in daylight. "Emergencies and invitations," she said, "not assumptions." I kissed her forehead because that felt like the right answer. The warm reward was not dramatic. It was Ethan falling asleep on the couch during a movie, Amelia's feet tucked under my leg, the furnace humming steady in the hallway because I had replaced the igniter before it failed again. For once, nobody needed rescuing. Still, real life left its first small mark. My phone buzzed twice from a client. Amelia's laptop chimed with a school email. Ethan asked if I could make his poetry night next Thursday, and I said yes before, checking the work calendar folded in my back pocket. Thursday arrived with sleet on the windshield and 3 missed calls from a bakery whose walk-in cooler had quit 2 days before Valentine's Day. I saw Ethan's poetry night on the paper calendar Amelia had taped to my fridge, circled in blue marker, and I told myself one quick service call would not hurt anybody. That was the kind of lie responsible men tell when they are about to become unreliable. One compressor led to another blown relay, then a parts run, then traffic backed up behind a jackknifed delivery truck. By the time I reached the school auditorium, the folding chairs were stacked against the wall, and a janitor was sweeping glitter off the floor. Ethan was not there. Amelia was. She stood near the stage in her black teacher cardigan, holding a paper program bent down the middle. She did not yell. That made it worse. "He read first," she said. "He saved you a seat." I looked at the empty chair beside her purse, the one with my name written on a sticky note in Ethan's block letters.
"I'm sorry."
"I know you are." Her voice stayed calm, but her hand crushed the program a little tighter. "That doesn't put you in the chair." I followed her home in my truck, stomach heavy, rehearsing apologies that sounded smaller every mile. In her kitchen, dinner sat cold on the stove. My key lay on the table beside an unopened cardboard box. I had ordered a new smart thermostat for her house without asking, thinking it would make her life easier. Amelia saw me looking at it. "You bought that. The old one keeps sticking. This would let you control the heat from your phone." "Jacob." She closed her laptop harder than necessary. "I didn't ask you to replace it. I was trying to help." "I know." She turned then, and the hurt in her face was not dramatic. It was tired. "That's the problem. You keep helping like you're still the guy next door who can fix things and leave before anybody asks what it costs." I had no defense that did not make me sound worse. "You think I don't trust you? I think you trust your tools more than my voice." The room went quiet except for the furnace humming in the hall. Ethan's poem, folded, small, sat on the counter. I picked it up, then stopped because even that felt like taking something before being invited. Amelia noticed. Her expression softened, but she did not rescue me from the point. "I don't need a manager. I don't need a replacement landlord. I need a partner who checks the calendar before he promises a child he'll show up." So we made rules with a dry erase marker on the fridge. Ask before fixing. Check before promising. Say yellow light when one of us needs silence but not distance. No leaving during hard conversations. Ethan added one at the bottom. Adults use calendars. I laughed once, ashamed and grateful. Then Amelia's email chimed. She opened it and her face changed. Brookline District wanted her for a final interview. Amelia did not open the email right away. She stood with one hand on the refrigerator door, the dry erase rules still wet beside her shoulder, and looked at the subject line like it was a weather warning. Brookline District final interview. Ethan leaned over the counter. "Is that the assistant principal thing?" Amelia nodded, but her eyes stayed on the screen. "The one 3 hours away?" He tried to sound casual. He failed. The next morning she did what Amelia always did when life got too big for feelings alone. She made a folder. Not a dramatic one, not a color-coded masterpiece, just a plain blue folder with printed maps, salary information, school rankings, apartment listings, and a page titled Ethan, Possible Transitions. I watched her at the kitchen table with her laptop open, hair clipped up, coffee gone cold beside a stack of student essays. She was not asking me to save her from the choice. She was studying it. I applied before us, she said without looking up. Before Friday at 7. Before the key. Before all of this had a name. I know. No, she said, finally meeting my eyes. I need you to really know. This isn't me running from you. The words hit a place in me I did not like to show. My mother left when I was 14. My father called it temporary until temporary became a decade. Ever since, I had been good at fixing what stayed bolted down and terrible at trusting anything with legs. On the table between us sat my own blueprints for the shop I had just leased. Miller Heating and Maintenance, a 2-year contract with 3 old apartment buildings, a loan payment due every month whether I slept or not. If I left, the business cracked before it stood. If she stayed, something in her might crack instead. Brookline's superintendent called that afternoon. Amelia put the phone on speaker only after asking Ethan if he wanted to hear. The woman on the line sounded kind, not pushy, but every word carried weight. Leadership track, underserved classrooms, housing stipend, start date in August. We need someone who understands children who carry home on their backs, the superintendent said. Amelia's face changed then, not because of ambition alone, because she knew those children. She had been teaching them for 12 years. Later, Ray came by with takeout and the honest pressure of family. Baby, love is beautiful, she told Amelia, setting cartons of lo mein on the counter. But don't shrink your life to prove you're loyal. I wanted to argue even though Ray was right. Instead, I stood by the sink and rinsed forks I had not used, feeling fear crawl up my throat. Amelia touched Ethan's school photo on the fridge, then the interview packet. I won't give up being his mother, she said. I won't give up becoming who I worked for. And I won't ask you to burn down your business to follow me. There it was, clean and cruel on the kitchen table. Brookline or us. Her future or our home. One of them had to lose. Amelia did not sleep that night. Neither did I. At 5:40 in the morning, she sent one text, yellow light. Not goodbye, just space. So I did not cross the yard, did not knock, did not turn fear into pressure. At 8:15, she called and said, come over. Bring your shop lease and the maintenance maps. When I walked in, the kitchen table had become a command center. Her blue folder sat open beside Ethan's school calendar, my loan paperwork, 3 printed bus routes, a Brookline district map, and the dry erase rules from the fridge copied onto a yellow legal pad. Ask before fixing. Check before promising. No leaving during hard conversations. Ethan had added, in pencil, adults use calendars. Amelia stood at the end of the table in her teacher cardigan, the one with chalk dust always caught near the cuffs. She looked tired, but not torn apart anymore. I'm done pretending there are only 2 choices, she said. Ray sat near the sink with coffee, arms crossed, ready to protect her sister from both romance and stupidity. Brookline needs after-hours facility support, Amelia continued, tapping one printed page. Their elementary buildings are old. Half their classrooms run space heaters in winter. I asked the superintendent what their emergency maintenance budget looks like. Esther here. You asked during your follow-up call? I'm a teacher. I know where the building hurts before the district admits it. She slid another paper toward me. You don't move your company. You pilot a service route 1 day a week in Brookline. I take the job if they agree to a 4-day leadership schedule for the first semester, with remote planning on Fridays. Ethan and I rent near the midpoint instead of inside Brookline. You keep the old contracts here. You train Luis to handle 2 nights of emergency calls. Luis was my best apprentice, steady, young, and better with scheduling software than I would ever be. The plan was not magic. Cost money, cost sleep, It cost pride because I had to admit I could not be the only man holding my business together. Ray leaned forward. And Ethan? Amelia looked at her son, not around him. 2 school tours. He chooses which one feels possible. Not perfect. Possible. Ethan studied the map, then drew a small circle halfway between my shop and Brookline. This town has a comic store, he said. That's data. I laughed, and Amelia almost did too. Then she looked at me. Your part is not saying yes because you're scared I'll leave. I nodded. My part is hiring Luis full-time, giving up being on every call, and showing you my real numbers before I promise anything. That afternoon, she presented the schedule to Brookline. I called my accountant and then Luis. Nobody cheered. Brookline wanted a trial semester. Luis wanted health insurance. The Midpoint house had bad plumbing and a porch that sagged. But by sunset, we had a test, not a fantasy. Amelia taped the map to the fridge beside the rules, and for the first time, our future had roads drawn on it. The question was no longer whether she would stay or go. It was what we were brave enough to call the life we were building. The trial semester became a year, and the year left evidence everywhere. There were 2 desks in the small front room of the Midpoint house, Amelia's covered in lesson plans and leadership binders, mine buried under invoices, service routes, and a coffee mug Ethan had labeled Boss Man with a strip of masking tape. Half the hall closet held my winter coats. The other half held Amelia's school bags and a basket of emergency granola bars. 2 sets of keys hung by the door now, not one spare key pretending to mean nothing. On the fridge, the dry erase rules remained, but they had grown. Ask before fixing. Check before promising. Yellow light means pause, not disappear. Fridays are for the calendar. Luis ran 2 crews without calling me every hour. Ethan rode the bus from the school he chose, then spent weekends helping me put stickers on toolboxes for warm rooms. The little program Amelia had turned from a complaint into a district partnership. She found the classrooms. I fixed the heat. Ray handled donations with the suspicion of a woman who trusted spreadsheets more than charm. Nobody got rescued. Everybody worked. The first winter we installed new thermostats in 9 classrooms, 3 apartments for retired teachers, and 1 library where kids had been wearing coats indoors since October. Amelia spoke at the school board meeting in a navy blazer with chalk dust on one sleeve, explaining heating failures the way she explained fractions. Clearly, patiently, without making anyone feel stupid unless they had earned it. I sat in the back row beside Ethan, and when she said, "Children learn better when they are warm enough to stop thinking about survival," I knew again that loving her meant making room for the whole size of her life. After the vote passed, Ethan set his tablet on the kitchen table at home. Aunt Ray was on video, Claire had sent a congratulations text, and Luis wanted a photo. For the company page, the little microphone icon glowed red. This time, everyone saw it. Amelia looked at me and lifted one eyebrow. "Microphone is on." I smiled. "Good." On the wall behind her, in a simple wooden frame, hung the old yellow thermostat from that first night. Below it, Ethan had printed the words, "No one ever comes when I call." Amelia used to hate that sentence. Now she tapped the frame before leaning toward the tablet. "For the record," she said, "I am not alone and I am not being carried. Also for the record," I added, "I did not come because something was broken." Ethan groaned. "Please don't make it mushy." Ray laughed through the speaker. Amelia reached under the table and found my hand, not hiding it from the camera. I looked at the woman beside me, the boy across from me, the calendars on the fridge, the keys by the door, the warm room sign drying on the counter. Then I said the thing I should have learned to say with my eyes open. "I choose this. Every ordinary day." Amelia squeezed my hand once, and the old thermostat watched over a house where nobody had to call twice to be seen.